Well, hello everybody, I hope this video finds you all fit and well. I get a lot of questions about slide guitar, so I thought I'd address as many of them as possible. The first subject that I think is very important is the use of different tunings. Now there are a myriad of different forms of tuning for slide guitar. However, if we separate out the more complex ones that are more commonly used for lap slide, and concentrate purely on the most commonly used for just normal slide guitar blues, they fall into two distinct categories. There is Vestopol and Spanish. Vestopol is where all 6 strings are tuned to the major chord and all 6 strings are tuned in sequence, with the 6th string being the root. This allows all the strings to be played throughout the blues progression on the same level of the slide, which makes it easy if you want to start learning slide. This is open D. So no matter where you are on the neck, all 6 strings can be used, so it's nice and simple. I don't want you to get too bogged down with theory, but having a basic understanding will help. So, a Vestopol tuning, very popular Ry-Cooder. Now, Spanish is still a major chord, but it's moved down a string. And on the dobro, we have it tuned to an open G. The 6th string is tuned to the 5th note in your major scale, so you can use it as part of a walking bass line technique, or, most commonly, it can be used as the C part of a blues progression. Okay? So, those are the 2 major forms of tuning. So you have Vestopol, which is open across the board, and you have the Spanish, which is the top 5 strings and the 6th string being tuned to the 5th note. The second part of this is the choice of strings. Obviously, with times being tough for everybody, we can't just go out and buy as many different sets of strings as we'd like. So you have to think about what gauge you're going to be using and why. Obviously, if you're like me and money's tight, then you have to think about what you're going to be using your guitar for. If, for example, you're going to be using an electric guitar with a very medium light gauge string, and you still want to play slide, it's going to be more difficult for you because the slide imparts quite a lot of weight to the string, and unless you actually increase the action quite a lot, you're going to struggle to really get a good sound. So using a heavyweight slide like this, when I cobble together, it's going to be quite difficult on a light gauge string. Medium to heavy gauge are favourite, heavier generally the better. You don't have to worry about bending a note because the slide's going to be doing it for you anyway. There will be some fretting, so you don't want it to be like trying to play some telegraph cables, but at the same time you want it to be hefty enough to give your sound warmth, and on an acoustic guitar some volume as well. I have started using flat wound strings because it suits my sound well, but generally speaking, on an acoustic electric guitar or an electric guitar, medium gauge is pretty good, but the heavier the better. If you wish to play slide on an electric guitar and you want to compromise between playing your electric guitar for everyday stuff and also for your slide, the only way around it is to use a lightweight slide like that. This is a Glass Pyrex one, and to illustrate the difference between a heavyweight and a lightweight slide, this is a lightweight on heavy gauge strings. There's almost no sustain to the note. Or with a heavier gauge, a lot better. So, just to recap, two major kinds of tuning. You have the Vestapol and you have the Spanish. And if you want to play slide, you need to address the kind of gauge of strings you're using. Lighter gauge don't carry as much resonance, but sometimes it's unavoidable if the vast majority of the body of your work is playing, you know, an electric guitar, and you want to have a Swiss Army guitar, for want of a better word, in which case use a light gauge slide. It doesn't give you much in the way of resonance, but it'll certainly get you on the road. And heavier gauge, much better, gives you bags of volume, bags of resonance, bags of body, and a heavier gauge slide. This is actually a glass slide. I have small hands, and I put finger tape that I use for rock climbing inside it to stop it slipping off. The alternative is a brass slide. The heavier the better. Again, it can have a slightly tinnier sound to it, but it's good enough for lots of people, so give it a try. Right, so that's the end of part one. See you in part two.